Hey guys, welcome back to another Clash Royale video, and today we'll be doing things a little bit different and actually doing a Clash Royale card tier list ranking every single card in the game from a brokenly overpowered to trash. It's weak. I figured after playing Clash Royale for over 4 years now, I have a relatively good idea as to what cards are good or not, and I thought it'd be interesting to spark a discussion and hear what you guys think and what you rate my tier list ranking, so feel free to leave your feedback down below. Now, I have 7 tiers on this list, ranging from a brokenly strong needing a nerf ASAP to trash, like do not use these cards ever. And I'm really interested to hear your feedback, guys. So let me know down below what you think of my Clash Royale card tier list ranking. But first things first, guys, let's start out with the first tier, brokenly strong, needing a nerf ASAP. I think there's actually only 2 cards in Clash Royale right now that desperately need a nerf and have a broken status. Feel free to leave a guess as to which 2 it is. Number 1, obviously, is going to be the Govan Giant, guys. As we all know right now, Govan Giant is brokenly overpowered. We haven't seen a card this strong since the Executioner and the Witch days. I don't think it's nearly as broken as those cards were, but no surprise, guys, that the Govan Giant is an absolutely busted card right now and obviously dominating the meta. The second card on my broken list here is going to be the Battle Healer. I actually think the Battle Healer is broken right now in the game. The way it works is just some decks have a 0 chance of defending an Elixir Golem Battle Healer push, whereas other decks just outright hard counter it. So it's a very matchup dependent card. However, I don't think that's good for the game, and I believe it is absolutely broken and needs a nerf desperately. So those are the only 2 cards that I have on my brokenly overpowered list. Let's shift focus now to the bottom tier, trash cards. There's only a couple cards in the game that I feel are absolute trash. These cards have like basically no clearly defined role at all in the game as to what they're supposed to do, or basically just don't do anything at all good. Number 1 is going to be the Elite Barbarians, if I can find it, right here. Guys, Elite Barbarians, I truly believe, are one of the weakest and worst cards in the game right now. They don't really do anything well. They don't kill tanks very fast. They don't counter push very well. They don't deal with like swarm or single target units. I just don't think they do anything well at all in Clash Royale. And I really hope to see some sort of redesign for the E-Barbs in the future. Another card that I think belongs on the trash tier list over here are going to be the Royal Recruits. Now, this is a card that costs 7 Elixir and is meant to be a shutdown a defense card, but they don't really do anything very well. They die way too fast on defense to justify a 7 Elixir cost. They never really survive or get any sort of value on the counter push, once again, to justify that 7 Elixir cost. So overall, I think the Royal Recruits belong on the trash tier list here as well. And I have one more card, I believe, on the trash list here again, and that will be the Witch. Ever since the Witch was reworked in the fall of last year and was brokenly strong, they nerfed her afterwards, and I think she just never, ever has been anywhere near where she was beforehand. Like, she was weak before the initial rework of fall of last year, but now she's like way weaker, I believe, than she was even before the rework of last year. So I think she belongs on the trash tier list. Now, moving up here, guys, for the very weak category, I believe we have the Wizard. Isn't too strong in Clash Royale. It dominates like mid-ladder, but honestly, it's not really that good. Like, it's fairly easy to counter, rarely ever gets good elixir value, and when it's not over level, which is usually the case for ladder, I don't think it's a good card at all. Like, the win rates right now at tourney standard are terribly low. Now let's just start randomly placing cards here as we go. Archers, I believe, are average. They're decent. They don't need a buff. They don't need a nerf. They work in a couple of decks, but overall just kind of like aren't too dominant in the game right now. I believe arrows are very good right now in the current meta, with those 3 waves being able to kill things like Night Witch Bats, Clone, Guards. The rework for arrows definitely made it a card to contend in the meta. Mirror, I would consider a very weak card. It has some use cases in like mirroring a Goblin Barrel, for example, but honestly, it's not really good. Even if you mirror Goblin Barrel, like, you usually just lose value. So it's mostly just meant for trolling and stuff like that. Baby Dragon is going to be a strong card. Some of you guys might think it's brokenly overpowered. I don't think so. It definitely is on the stronger side of things, guys, on the S tier list over here. Balloon, very effective win condition, belongs, in my opinion, on the good tier list, A tier up here. Bandit as well is an A tier card. Bats. I think bats, I've been saying this for a while, I think bats are low-key very, very strong. If you don't have a Zap or Snowball in your deck, maybe you're running Barbarian Barrel or Log, you definitely notice how strong those bats are. I think they're due for a slight nerf. If I were to nerf the bats, I would think they should nerf their attack speed. They deal so much damage so fast for a 2 elixir card and are extremely punishing if you don't have an immediate response. So I definitely feel like bats are on the S tier of the card ranking. Bomber over here, guys, I actually think is average. There was a time way back then when Bomber was a weak card, but I think it does fairly well for what it's supposed to do in Clash Royale. It's meant to be a 3 elixir, high damage splasher, and I think it does that fairly well. I think for a 3 elixir card, fairly often you can get good value for it in certain decks. Obviously, it's not widespread in the meta. Bomb Tower, however, guys, one more bombing card over here. Very, very strong. Tons of health, shuts down everything, is good for dealing with tanks, for dealing with swarms, for dealing with air with that death bomb. Basically does everything. I think the Bomb Tower needs a slight health reduction in terms of a nerf. Either that, like, I think if you nerf the attack speed of the Bomb Tower, it would kill the card. So I would say like maybe like a 5% health nerf is what it needs. Bowler over here, I consider to be a somewhere between weak and very weak. I'm gonna give it more of the weaker tier over here. Yeah, it's pretty weak. Doesn't really do anything too well, but it can be effective in the right hands. So I feel like the Bowler should belong in the C tier as a weak card that needs a slight buff. Cannon card, however, I consider average. It does what it's supposed to do very effectively. Not too strong, not too overpowering, but definitely is average. By the way, guys, average is meaning that it's basically like it's decent in the meta, not overpowered, doesn't need a nerf, doesn't need a buff, but it does what it's supposed to, and is basically the benchmark standard for how strong cards should be. Barbarian Barrel, going to be good. Most of the spells, these small spells will be good. Earthquake, guys, for example, is going to be a good card as well. It shines right now in the current meta just because buildings are popular, but I don't think it makes it brokenly overpowered. Because the problem with the Earthquake is if you're facing decks that don't have buildings, you definitely notice it and it isn't as versatile. So if it was more versatile, would definitely be in the strong tier. But I think with it, you know, being weaker versus swarms than like poison or whatever, that I think it belongs in the A tier for sure. Cannon, I think, is a little bit weaker right now. Basically, the only deck that uses Cannon is the 2.6 Hog Cycle, which overall just isn't a good deck overall. Free Spell, I think, is a weaker card as well. Clone, weaker. I wouldn't say it's very weak because there are some like clone decks that are extremely matchup dependent but still work. So I think Clone is a weaker card for sure. Bomb Tower up here, definitely going to be a good card. Not too strong. You know, they buffed the Bomb Tower, I think it was February or March, and it was nowhere near as drastic as the Goblin Hut change was. So I definitely don't think it's too like overpowered, but it's on the stronger side. Dark Goblin as well, I think, is a average card. Doesn't need a nerf, doesn't need a buff. Is basically at the benchmark standard for how strong a card should be. Same thing with Electro Dragon, I think is average. E-Wizard, however, is a good card. That's Battle Ram. Battle Ram, I think, is average. Nothing too crazy, nothing too strong. Just about average. E-Wizard, guys, good. Not too strong. I hope they don't nerf E-Wizard. I think it's an effective card for what it's supposed to do, but it has its limitations. So I don't think it needs a nerf. I think it's just kind of on the gooder side of things. Elixir Pump, I consider very, very weak. Very hard to ever get value with that pump. Ever since they removed it from being in your starting hand, kind of just overall killed the card, which kind of just proved how broken it was. If a card is only good when you get it in your starting hand, it shouldn't be in the meta. So definitely happy with the Elixir Pump being out of the meta. Elixir Golem, I think, is like somewhere between strong and good. I'm going to put it more on the gooder side of things, just because like it isn't really the elixir golem that is overpowered right now. I honestly think it's the battle healer that is making the elixir golem feel stronger than it actually is. I think once the battle healer is kind of like nerfed a bit, the elixir golem won't be nearly as dominant. One thing I hope or kind of wish they would do with elixir golem potentially is maybe balance it to 4 elixir instead of 3. So maybe, increase it to 4 elixir, but, give it more health and more damage. And that way your opponent can't really get like a massive push going on for so cheap. Just a random idea right there. Executioner, I think, is fairly weak right now. I wouldn't say it's like very, very weak, but it definitely is on the weaker side of things. Barbarians are average. Dart Prince is average. Actually, the Barbarians, guys, the Fireball rework to Barbarians back, I believe it was spring last year, where they now add a Fireball in one shot and you have 5 Barbarians, is one of my favorite reworks in Clash Royale history. I think they kind of definitely nailed it on that one. Fireball definitely is average in my opinion right now. Poison is just way more versatile than Fireball is in many scenarios. Firecracker, I think, is a very good card. She's extremely annoying if you don't have a response for her. So she is definitely a good card. Fire Spirit's going to be weak. Fisherman, we all know how that goes, guys. A very, very weak card in Clash Royale right now. Cannon Kart, what is that? Fly Machine, average. It has its use cases. It has a very, very long range. Obviously, isn't dominating the meta right now, but it does have those use cases when it is effective. So I definitely think it's an average card. Furnace, I think, is somewhere between weak and average, but I want to rank it above average or just on average right there because it does have use cases. It's not a terrible card. Now, the Giant I also think is an average card. A lot of the Giant decks that are like doing well in the meta, I don't think it's the Giant that's like super strong in the deck. Things like Miner, for example, kind of carry those Giant decks, or things like Sparky, for example. I think that Giant by itself, like individually as a card, is, average, for example. Moving on, guys, Giant Skeleton, I think, is a weaker card. Obviously works in some kind of like off-meta strategies, but isn't too crazy. Snowball is definitely on the gooder tier of things. Goblin Barrel, I'm going to say, is average. It does well right now because of the Skeleton Barrel buff, but honestly, like, Log Bait wasn't really in a good place before that Skeleton Barrel buff, so it's kind of just being carried right now by the Skeleton Barrel. Goblin Cage is average. Goblin Gang, I think, is a very good card, so we're going to go in the good tier up there. Govan Giant, I'm kind of conflicted here. I think the Govan Giant by itself is weak. It's carried by things like Sparky, which make it appear stronger than it actually is. But I think by itself, the Govan Giant is a weaker card. Definitely weaker than the regular Giant, in my opinion. Goblins are average for sure. Golem is average. It's definitely annoying, mostly because just Golem is so popular on ladder, and just because of how, like, straightforward the battles are. Whenever you face a Golem deck, it's the exact same thing. They go Golem, they go Night Witch, they lightning your defense, rinse, repeat over and over and over again. And Golem it tends to be a more of a matchup dependent deck. Like, you either counter them or they counter you, and you have no chance. But I definitely think Golem is on the average side of the power rankings. Graveyard, I think, is a good card. Don't think it's too overpowered, but I think it's definitely good just because of the ability to kind of defend and counter push. Guards, I think, are going to be average, for example, for sure. Heal Spirit, I think, is a really good card. It works so well with so many different synergies and different cards in Clash Royale, and I think they definitely balanced it right with that rework of the heal card. The heal is very, very strong. So, Hog Rider are going to be average over here, guys. Hog Rider, like, there's like 1 or 2 decks that have Hog Rider. Usually it's Hog Rider, Firecracker, Cycle. 2.6 Hog is falling out of the meta fast because it's not really a good deck and it's really, really hard to use. But I think Hog Rider for sure is average. Same thing with the Hunter. Average, I would say. Ice Golem is going to be good for sure. You're almost always going to get value with it. 2 Elixir, you can kite things to opposite lanes. It's an efficient, cheap Elixir tank. It has that slow effect and the splash damage when it dies. So it is a very effective card. Like, for example, you can use Ice Golem to defend bats, right? There's just so many different use cases and so much versatility with the Ice Golem card that I think it's a good card for sure. Ice Spirit, basically same thing. Always almost guaranteed value. 1 Elixir cycle card. Ice Wizard, I think, is average. I think by itself, the Ice Wizard isn't like overpowered or strong. I think things like NATO really excel it to make it appear stronger. Infernal Dragon, same thing as average. Does well for what it's supposed to do. Isn't an overly overpowered card, but just does what it's supposed to do effectively. Infernal Tower, I think, is on the weaker side of things right now, but I think that's actually kind of good. I think the Infernal Tower is extremely oppressive when it is in the meta. The Knight, however, I think is a strong card for sure. 3 elixir, almost always gets value, kills goblins in one shot, has many different use cases, and I think is overall a very effective card. Lava Hound as well, I consider a strong win condition. The win rates for Lava Hound are always extremely high. This is a pretty controversial pick right here. I feel like a lot of you guys watching might have Lava Hound as average or weak. But I honestly think that Lava Hound is a very strong card. Whenever I look at the win rates of Lava Hound, they're always very high. Like higher than basically most of the win conditions in the game. So I definitely consider it a good card in Clash Royale. Lightning Spell, guys, for the most part, the heavier spells I think are just about average. Just because they're very specific for matchups, right? If you're running Lightning Spell and you face like a deck that has, I don't know, Inferno Tower and an E-Dragon or whatever, then you get lightning spell value. Nobody uses Inferno Tower and E-Dragon in the deck, but you know what I mean. Like if they have those value targets, it works. But if you use Lightning Spell and you face a Swarm deck, it's useless. It's a dead card. Same thing with Rocket. It can be very situational, so I consider them average at best. Lumberjack is average. Kind of maybe in a little bit weaker. Lumberjack, no, he's average. I think Mini Pekka just kind of outshines Lumberjack right now. Magic Archer is definitely on the weaker side of things. Mega Knight is going to be good. I definitely think Mega Knight and Pekka are both good cards. Pekka isn't as popular right now because of the meta. But I think Pekka overall is a good card. Doesn't need a buff, doesn't need a nerf, but it definitely is above average in terms of power sense. Just doesn't excel in the current meta because the current meta is Swarm based. Mega Minion is a good card, guys. Very, very versatile. Basically always gets value when you need to use it and works in many different scenarios. Miner, definitely going to be an S tier strong card, even despite the nerf that it got back in whenever it was nerfed. It still works in basically any deck, is almost guaranteed chip damage to the tower, can be used on defense, can be used on offense to snipe units. Just a very, very versatile and effective card. Minion Horde, definitely on the weaker side of things, guys. Minions, however, I would consider good, right? Mini Pekka, this is an interesting card here. Mini Pekka. Guys, Mini Pekka is S tier strong. I definitely think the Mini Pekka is due for a nerf. I would say a slight health nerf. I don't think you should nerf the damage of the Mini Pekka. It's meant to be a DPSer, so don't change that. I just think the Mini Pekka is a little bit too tanky for a high damage card. So definitely could see that being nerfed. Mortar is going to be a average card. Musketeer, guys, this is a card that I think low-key is overpowered. I could honestly see the Musketeer getting a slight nerf. I would say maybe her health. I definitely think she's kind of like flying under the radar right now in terms of how strong she is. Night Witch, I consider average. Poison is good. Basically a more versatile version of Fireball. Prince is average. Same with Princess, kind of nothing too crazy going on with those cards. Rage is a very, very weak card. The only time we've ever seen Rage in the meta is with that current Elixir Golem Rage deck, which is more so the Battle Healer being broken than it is the Rage spell. Ram Rider I consider to be an average card as well. Rascals I consider good. The thing with Rascals is honestly, if you don't have like an answer for those Rascal girls, they get so much value. So definitely consider them a good card. Rural Delivery, this one's very sad. I think it's a very weak card. I hope they buff it in the next balance update because I feel like for being a newer card in Clash Royale, it should be in the meta and hopefully have a place. Ghost, consider average because it's not too weak. It's a little bit outshined right now by a few other cards, but I definitely think Ghost is okay, right? It's average. Same thing with Royal Giant. Doesn't need a nerf, doesn't need a buff. It's fine where it is. Royal Hogs, however, definitely on the gooder side of the meta in the A tier list. Scar Enemy is going to be average. If the opponent has Zap, destroys it, but if they don't have Zap, gets value. Skeleton Barrel going to be an absolutely, we'll throw it here for now, strong card. 100% very strong card right now in Clash Royale. Puts on pressure, almost always baits out a spell. When paired up with fast cycle cards like Wall Breakers or Goblin Barrel, just gets value like crazy. Skeletons, once again, guys, Skeletons are also going to be a good card. 1 elixir, they basically get value in every scenario. So versatile, guys, and work in just many different cases. I definitely think they're a good card. Same thing with Sparky. I think Sparky is very good as well. It's kind of funny because Sparky once in the day was like down here. Remember Trash Can on Wheels? I don't think they ever changed too much with her, but she slowly kind of just came into the meta. She can be an extremely frustrating card if you don't have an answer. But I definitely think Sparky is a good card in the game. Spirit Goblin can be average. Tesla is average. Log for sure is good. 3 Musketeers, I think they're fine with where they are right now. We've actually seen a couple of decks this season that rock the 3 Musketeers. The problem with 3 Musketeers is when they are good in the game, they are meta warping. So I feel like having them be where they are right now is good overall for the health of Clash Royale. Tombstone is average. Wall Breakers are going to be definitely a strong and good card in Clash Royale. Same thing with Expo. I think it's pretty good if you are a higher skill player, or if you're an Ice Ball user, then that is also that is a different case entirely. Zaspel is going to be a good card as well. Zappies, on the very weak side of things, guys. I think Zappies, they need some love again. Obviously, they were buffed in a couple months ago, but I still think they're weak and need a buff as well. Valkyrie for sure going to be a good card. Just basically always gets value and destroys basically everything. And finally, guys, the last card on the list here is the infamous NATO. I've saved the best for last. Obviously, we have confirmation that NATO is getting a rework in the next balance update. So where does it belong on this list? I consider the NATO right now strong. I don't consider it to be a brokenly overpowered card in the sense of like the way Goblin Hut and Battle Healer are. It definitely needs a rework. I'm happy that they are reworking it, but I definitely consider it more of a stronger card than like brokenly overpowered, if that makes sense. But anyways, guys, that right there is my Clash Royale card tier list ranking for April 2020. Let me know, what do you think? Do you agree or do you disagree with anything on my list? If you had the ability to make your own tier list in Clash Royale, what cards would be on there? What would your ranking be, guys? Feel free to leave your feedback down below. Obviously, we have balance changes coming out in about a week or so, a week and a half now, in May. So hopefully they should be big ones. It sounds like they will be with the nerf for the NATO. I think will have a ripple effect across the entire meta. Like when you think about all the cards that use NATO, Splash Yard, Ice Bow, Golem, E-Golem, there's just so many different decks in Clash Royale that have NATO in there. So I definitely think it's going to be an interesting period of time afterwards to see how that the meta changes after the NATO nerf or rework, but basically to be a nerf overall for the NATO. So guys, that is the end of the video. Let me know down below if I should do more videos like this in the future. I wanted to do something a little bit different today, just because I saw a comment yesterday on my video that kind of like stood out to me. Basically, the comment said that it was like, Shane, I love your videos, but every day it's just a new deck. I want to see something different. So I saw that and I was like, you know what? You're right. Every day, we just take a look at a new deck, which, I enjoy playing new decks, which is why I do it. But I feel like stuff like this might be a good way kind of just to break things up and add a bit of variety and spice into it. So let me know what you think, guys, down below. But that is the end. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. But we shall see you in the next one.